need to be really partners in helping universities solve those changes. And some of the presentations today have talked a lot about that partnering word. And part of that is the IT departments have to go beyond traditional services. So you heard some of the things that Bob was talking about earlier. Enterprise architecture, the CIOs were talking about that as well, speaks to some of those issues. So when we look at what are the traditional services that IT departments have tended to provide, we kind of visualized it as a tree with the branches and the leaves forming some of those normal infrastructure services that we all do, regardless of the size of the university. But then you start looking at the different areas, and this is where the value add is, and we perceived it really as fruit. So that's things like what Bob's group is doing and my group is doing around relationship management. There's things around really becoming more strategic in how we deliver the services. And in the CIO presentation, they talked about at one point the business going back to the IT department going, you make the decision about priorities. We really don't know how to do this. So you help us with that. And it's about us taking on more of that strategic role with them. So today, Gayleen and I are really going to be talking about what those different services look like and how we're going to deliver those. For UBC, this is just a brief overview of the UBC context. Of course, this is our campus. We're located in Vancouver. We're a very large, very distributed research organization. We have 4 main campuses. We have a main campus in the Okanagan, also one in Point Grey. We have one at Robson Square, and one that we share with SFU and a few other universities. In terms of our IT context, we're about 50-50 in terms of centralization. We have a budget of $55 million a year. We're guesstimating the overall campus IT spend, though, to be closer to $120 million. We have about 800 IT staff on campus. That does not reflect the union staff or the research IT support staff that are usually buried in different categories. So these are professional IT staff. And in the central IT department, we have about 420. That's a huge change for us. 4 years ago, we had 160. So we've been on a very accelerated program of trying to bring our IT together organizationally. In terms of facts about IT at UBC, we take about 40,000 calls in our service desk. We have about 6 petabytes of storage, 65,000 network ports, and an ever-increasing number of wireless network ports as well. So in terms of the challenges that we faced, 4 years ago, we were in big trouble. We had an IT review on campus, and basically, they came back and said, if you do not make changes, no other research institute is going to want to partner with you. Your campus systems are at risk of severe failure because of the degree of decentralization, the decentralization of the funding. We were really only running the voice network and the actual data network. And the voice network we were at risk of losing because people were building their own asterisk servers. So at that point, our dial plan was at risk, and 911 we don't want to talk about. So we had to make some very, very drastic changes. They talked about privacy risk around that time is when the focus shifted from attacking the financial institutions to attacking the very data-rich universities. And so we were also very much at risk there. And fundamentally, IT was just not seen as strategic partners. We used to joke that you didn't want to walk around campus with a t-shirt on your back that said IT because it just felt like a big bullseye. And really that was the challenge for us. We were not considered really an asset. So current state, we'll just go back to that. So current state, a lot's changed. We now are heading towards some level of IT alignment across campus. In fact, our VP of Finance just made me fall off my chair when he stated he'd like to see the full organization reporting alignment of IT on campus within 2 years. Now, that he's just putting a stake in the ground. Whether or not that's achievable, either politically or organizationally, will be seen. But that was, I think, a pretty important statement. We now have governance for all of our major functions. So we have a strategic IT council that consists of deans, VPs, and other major administrative areas. We also have a vision of integrated but distributed. So we're not trying to bring everybody back to the main building on campus and really operate as an ivory tower. We still need that local distributed IT component. And today, IT is now seen really as a trusted partner on campus. And we're brought in very, very early to have the strategic dialogue even before you start talking about the actual technology needed. So for example, in the flipped classroom, our CIO is actually participating in the planning and design, even of the academic side of it. So the question really is, how did we get here? And one of the ways we did that was being able to show how we were different from having your own IT support unit in your dean's office that was able to provide support. So what value add were we providing is really what we'll be talking about today that enabled that change. So at this point, I'm going to hand it over to Gayleen to talk about the Guelph context.
Thanks. That's great. Thanks. Nice to see you all here. So we're talking about the University of Guelph. Sorry, I'm just going to get organized here. We are not on an ocean and we don't have mountains, but we do have a lovely commons area, and this is our lovely Johnson Hall, one of our signature buildings on campus. Similar to UBC, we have a research-intensive focus at the University of Guelph, much different size than UBC as well, but I think there's really a nice spectrum here that we're trying to provide today, and that's why I think that the two of us together work really well in terms of reflecting larger and more medium-sized campuses. Our IT facts, really interesting point that I want to make here is simply that we have a $9 million budget for our central IT organization. I actually can't tell you what the overall spend is on our campus. There's a little bit more clarity at the UBC campus about that. That is one of our, I won't call it a holy grail, but it's definitely something that we're working towards, trying to make a better determination as to what the overall IT spend is on campus. We are obviously also in a variety of different service areas and delivering a number of things on campus, managed desktops and so forth. And we also have a data center. We've moved to very much a virtualized environment within that environment as well. This is our vision. CCS went through a strategic planning process a couple of years ago, and this is the vision that we came up with the assistance of our broader staff. And I think the key piece here is really around the knowledge solutions piece. A lot of what we're talking about today really reflects that, and also the partnering component, which is really critical to us. We do see ourselves as in a partnership relationship with the various areas on campus, and that's what we're really striving towards with everything that we do now, is to build that partnership. Everybody has challenges. These are some of ours. And again, I think that this sort of reflects a little bit of Jen's discussion, really getting in early in those strategic discussions, having an opportunity to carry on conversations with the various areas on campus to understand what they're needing to do is really critically important to us. And so our big piece is, we're still not always consulted in those areas, but we're really working in that direction. And some of the things that we're going to be talking about in the broader discussion today around BA and IT review, relationship management, as well as ITIL, really help to build that opportunity for us. And so now it's back to the tree metaphor, and I'm going to pass it back to Jen so she can talk about all that good fruit.
So when Gayleen and I were talking, we couldn't talk about everything. So we wanted to look at what were the things that made the biggest, or was making the biggest impacts on our campus. So we chose business analysis, we chose IT service management, relationship management, and then the IT review and audit process. So if you look at discovering what's all out there and understanding what the gaps are, then you really need to have that IT review to understand where all the components are living. In terms of IT service management, that's about shared process, that's about accountability, and it's about transparency back to your community, and that's really important as well. And then as part of the relationship management, that piece for us was key in making the change that we've made over the last 4 years. So my group as client services has no technology in it. We actually do work, but we don't actually deliver anything concrete in terms of services. So for us, it's really about the interaction on campus. And then the business analysis piece is a burgeoning area, I think, for everybody here in terms of understanding what the requirements are. So I'll hand it back to Gayleen for that.
Thanks, Jen. Okay, well, I've spoken a little bit. Chris and I actually did a presentation earlier today speaking about our IT review process, and this is built on our business analyst practice, something that we implemented over the last year to 2 years at the University of Guelph. The intent really is to have a practice that we can, I'm going to use the bad term, sell, but to present out to our clients, something that they can come to us to access, both for large and small projects. We do have framework that we're using, built on methodology, comes out of the IIBA and is a little bit more specific to our area. And we've implemented a community of practice. So any BA on our campus is able to participate in that as long as they're working with our methodology, so that we try to keep things fairly consistent. There's lots of challenges. I think the big one here, both in terms of internal to our CCS department, but also on campus, is what is a BA? How do they fit into the things that we're doing? And so that's a constant conversation that we're having. Obviously, there's an opportunity to share with them the methodology, our framework, but more importantly, I think as we build success stories, there's an opportunity to represent what they can actually deliver to the various areas. And obviously, there's lots of benefits that we believe, new services and being able to go out into those partner areas and really help them on their projects. It's not about what we want to push on them. It's really, what are your goals? What are we trying to do to help you? And a business analyst can bring some really strong both process and also solutions into the mix with their goals in mind. And now we're moving back to BC.
So one of the core recommendations that came out of the IT review that we did was implement ITIL. And they went a bit more specific than that, because that's sort of a broad, expensive, challenging statement. They actually said implement incident handling. And so when we started to pursue this, we looked at what does it mean to implement incident handling. Which framework do we go with? Do we go with ITIL? Do we go with something else? So we did choose to go with ITIL, and we decided to start a program to make that change. So to give you perspective, we probably had not one ticketing tool within the central IT organization. We had about 20. So some people were using Jira, some people were using Excel spreadsheets, some people were using email. They were using a shared email box across all the various groups. And we've actually had the IT technical staff lead that audit, because we wanted their buy-in, because they really didn't get, why do I need to do this? Like, what's the real value? They were somewhat shocked themselves when they realized that how many different ways we were tracking incidents. So then the second question is, so do we do this by ourselves, or do we reach out to our partners? So say Faculty of Medicine, the Sauder School of Business, a bunch of others, and do we try to do it together? And there's some benefits to doing it together, meaning that you get increased buy-in. If there's an opportunity to standardize across the university, across the different help desks. And so that way you get faster ticket escalation, you get some knowledge sharing about what's happening to that ticket. At the same time, everything slows down quite considerably, because now you've got group governance, group decision-making about how to actually do it. So despite the challenges that we knew were coming, we decided to do it together, because by doing so, hopefully it would lead us to the end result that we were actually going for, which was more coordinated IT across campus and sharing and basically a better service for our clients. So in the last couple of years, we have a collaborative service catalog. So that means if you go to the main IT service catalog, and if you went to the business school catalog and a few others, ideally they will look the same. So that a user going to the medicine service catalog wouldn't have a different experience. They'd have the same services, they'd be listed the same way, and they could actually go directly between catalogs. We agreed upon a single incident handling process, which is different from the tool. The process has to come before your tool. So we all sat down, about 100 people all together, agreed that this is how we were going to receive a request for help and then move it through the various stages of problem solving until you have a resolved incident. And then we agreed we were going to have a shared implementation of a tool, and if anyone's interested, we chose ServiceNow as the hosted tool solution. Other processes that we're currently working on implementing is service portfolio management, service level management, which goes hand in hand with those service level commitments we talked about. We also did the incident handling. Problem management is the next beast to kind of happen, and that's when you have 100 tickets all about the same problem because your phone switch went down. So it's being able to link those tickets and work through the more complex issues. And then we're working on the second phase of our service catalog with request fulfillment, meaning that hopefully the user can go all the way through from saying, I want an email account, all the way through to actually getting that email account and having it happen automatically without human intervention. So that's the second phase that we're working on. So the challenges that we saw, in addition to the kinds of things you would normally see in an ITIL implementation, the greater complexity a very extended and lengthy planning process because you have to kind of get everybody's buy-in to the agreement. Maintaining buy-in, so the longer an IT project takes, the more you lose that buy-in and people get distracted with other projects and move off. So we did lose some of our initial faculties that agreed to join. They sort of wandered away onto other projects. And then also getting agreement from all these different IT groups about working for what's best for the organization and not necessarily for my group. So, for example, the Faculty of Arts had to put aside some things that they really wanted for the benefit of the whole. And those things are major wins, really, for the overall organization. And then the second piece is funding, because now we're going to such a high level with ServiceNow, our costs increased exponentially in terms of the licensing commitments. The benefits, though, that we saw is that overall, what we see now between the groups that have adopted it, it's a much easier process to escalate between groups. You can also actually see where the gaps are as things fall between the cracks. It's much easier to identify where you need to do some more work. Obviously, we're focusing on the enterprise versus a point solution. The consistency in IT presence across campus has been really important, especially as we start bringing on other groups into IT. So the fact that we already have this solid process means it's much easier when you integrate with another team that they can adopt those processes and we can harmonize much faster. Overall, this was a huge win for us in terms of people change. So if any of you have done ITIL, you know the technology piece is the easiest piece. It's about getting people to buy into the fact that you're doing this process and that you're not actually loading on a whole bunch of bureaucracy. There's huge benefit actually, and being able to show that benefit. So as an example, one of the things we saw in one of our faculties is that we went from having 65 to 70% of the tickets being completed in a week or more to having 65 to 70% of the tickets being closed for same day. It was with the exact same staff, the exact same funding. The only thing we changed was the tool and the process. So when you get that kind of, and I'm not saying we can get that in all circumstances, it's all off, bets are off with engineering, but I think, everyone's talking about engineering, we're starting to talk to them, we're a little scared, but I think overall, it really did demonstrate for us that there's real value here, and I think for us that was a huge metric. So moving on, we're going to move to now back to Guelph to talk about their next piece.
Right, which is our IT review. And I think it's interesting with Jen's discussion that she's been able to move forward in a very large institution with ITIL, and I think we've heard that there are a lot of challenges with that. We've done a training across our department. Everybody's done just the fundamentals, just to kind of open up people's ideas or minds around what ITIL could offer. And we haven't gone any further than that, but it's great to see some successful implementations happening. And I think that gain in terms of the process and doing things better and more efficiently with the same people is really, obviously, that's the big win. So IT reviews, we've put IT reviews /audits at UBC. Jen's team also undertakes a process like this. They refer to it, I believe, as an IT audit. So we've kind of done a bit of a slash here on reviews audits. This can come in a lot of different flavors. Chris and I spoke this morning about how we're actually implementing this in more detail in our discussion. We have had these happen before. We spoke earlier today about the fact that we've had CIOs from other institutions come on to campus and focus on particular departments to assist them in really understanding their current IT environment and providing recommendations on some things that they could do different to help improve either efficiency or budget or service implementation, what have you. So we are now doing that. Having BAs on site has provided us with the ability to undertake that service area ourselves. And again, we're following the methodology that we put in place with our BAs in order to do that. But we've also kind of taken that and twisted it a little bit to make it a bit more specific to the IT review process as needed. I think the big thing just in terms of the win for us is it really truly is providing us a way to have discussions. There's many challenges. I think one of the biggest one is that piece around trust. Why are we coming out to tell you what might help you to do things better? What's our goal? And as I spoke earlier, really our goal is whatever the client goal is. So they are already having these discussions internally, knowing that there may be gaps in how IT is provided in their environments. So that buy-in piece is critically important, having discussions, really clearing the way with a true understanding that we're there to hold their goals as the key goals and to be accountable to them in terms of what our recommendations are. So we really need to have some opportunity to have lead-up conversations to clear that way. Recommendations are recommendations. That's what comes out of our IT review process, and it's up to them whether or not they want to follow those recommendations. The key piece, again, then, is the dialogue. We have a slogan at CCS, opening doors to technology, or opening doors to IT, I should say, and this really does provide a start, an initial discussion through the project. Obviously, there's lots of touch points, but the idea is that we are now sitting down talking very specifically about technology within the various departments and having more constructive and detailed discussions about what's possible in terms of our central services, what we could provide. But also, there are a number of things that we don't do. We are still looking at a very mixed environment. We intend that there'll continue to be a distributed IT on our campus. So what do they need to do in order to continue to move their own agendas forward and to help ensure that they are achieving their goals and their strategies through their IT deliverance. So I think that that's one of the key pieces, and I know you have a few things you could probably add to this, Jen, in terms of how you guys are doing things at UBC.
Yeah. So I find probably the majority of my team's time now is spent in this area. We have 3 of them underway currently, really large ones that will take multi-months to complete. And we usually approach them from a business standpoint, although I know business is a bad word here. Academic enterprise is, we take it from that perspective, and then we take it down to the technology that's supporting that. And then we also look at the people layer. So, who are the staff? What are their skills? What are their career objectives? And how well does all of this align together? One of the things that tends to happen is that we're approached usually for one of 3 reasons. One reason, it could be because a group runs out of money and they can't continue to support the infrastructure they have with the money and the support resources they have. It may be that they don't want to spend any more money, but they actually want better service delivery, or they have no money and they want better service delivery. That will happen. And then, the third thing is they're worried about the development of their staff. So when you have these onesie-twosies IT resources buried in a faculty, there really isn't any career progression. There's no way for them to advance. And so what they're looking back to UBC IT as, because we have a career framework now, we have mentoring programs, we have training programs, we have a way for somebody to look and say, I'm a network administrator, but I really want to be an enterprise architect. How do I get there on the ladder, and what does that look like? And so that for them is also has been a point that have brought them forward. We tend not to do these in terms of descending on the Faculty of Science and saying, yay, today's your turn, we're going to do a review, because that wouldn't go so well. What actually happens is they see what's going on in other areas and they come to us and say, can you take a look at what we're doing and make some recommendations? And then through that process, you build a lot of trust, you build a lot of interest, and before you know it, you end up in a new environment. So as an example, in our engineering faculty, it started with, we'd like you to come in and take a look. And within, I guess, about a month and a half, they've made the decision they're going to transfer the IT support to us and all the technology that goes with that. Now, the staff don't know what their roles are going to be. They know that they will be working with UBC IT. So they will have a couple of months when they don't know what that's going to look like. And so we really have to work very, very hard at the people side at keeping them grounded and making sure that they're comfortable with the direction and building relationships with them through that process, because that's a pretty stressful period. But in general, I wouldn't say that we would go into a department and say, well, we're just here to take a look. It's not going to result in a change, because there's been enough change with UBC. They know that's actually not likely the case, unfortunately. So the big piece actually that has made huge change on our campus, and I mentioned that, is about the relationship management function. So I have 8 client service managers, some of whom are today, so hopefully they'll keep me honest, that actually provide several different kinds of services. So one is if there's an intact IT group, like the Faculty of Science, the Faculty of Medicine, they will provide an account management function. So they'll meet with them regularly, let them know what services are available or up or coming.
from UBCIT, and so that they understand. And we also to provide that single point of contact for escalation. So if there's a complaint or an issue, that's their first stop, so it doesn't end up at the CIO or VP Academics desk. Every faculty, college, or administrative unit has a client service manager associated, where we're actually managing the IT for those groups. So the Sauder School of Business or the Faculty of Education, we will actually have someone dedicated to act as that IT manager function or IT coordinator function. We also do, of course, the IT reviews / audits for groups as well. So overall, we'll manage projects for a client and act as that liaison between the main area. And as mentioned, we have about 8. The number changes, so it's 7 or 8, depending on the time of year. We started out in 2010 with 1, and then very quickly the demand grew. In some cases, some areas are actually funding those positions. In some cases, if it's a single point of contact, they don't. So enough clients are now seeing the value that this has become a self-funding model. In terms of the roles, so the senior client service managers are very senior management positions in our organization. We have service managers or coordinators. These are people who might be embedded in the faculty if they're large enough and run the day-to-day operations. I have a technology advisor, which is kind of like a solutions architect. So they will come in and create the annual plan depending on development. So they'll do a technology architecture that the client service managers will follow in terms of delivering the solutions. And I also have half of a BA that works with me to analyze our needs in terms of applications as well. So some of the challenges, it's really important that you don't go too heavily on the client side. So you can't kind of come in and go, the client wants this and you will do that. You really have to understand what it means to be a technology service provider. So you also have to be representing IT as well. And sometimes I'm always readjusting that balance. So it's really between the two because you need to have the credibility on both sides. Initially, when we did this, our technology staff were like, we could have hired like 6 developers. What are you doing? Or actually 12 or whatever. But, you know, why are these roles important? And why is this person asking me to do this? It wasn't really until we had to do a really complex email migration project. We were moving from one email system to the other. And then they couldn't get buy-in from the faculties. And so when they went in with a client service manager, those relationships had already been built and it went a lot smoother. And I think at that point, the emphasis switched. They went, oh, we understand now, because it was actually an enabling role. And I think it took a while to actually see that. Hiring the right people. So you need people with excellent interpersonal communication skills, but they've got to have project management backgrounds as well. And they've got to have some business analysis ability. And they also have to have had some form of IT management experience, because you need to be able to walk a mile in a service delivery manager's shoes to understand the operational challenges in order to really be able to manage these things. And then, of course, balancing the portfolios, because clients don't stay static. They have big projects coming, and the research side as well is quite intensive. So what we've been able to see really as the benefits is about that transparency and accountability. If you're taking people's money, because when we go in and we take the staff, we also take budget. And in some cases, we invoice them quarterly. So there's a real direct relationship between the services we're delivering and the amount people are actually having to pay for that service. So this really helps to ensure there's someone to talk to when there's issues around that. Knowledge sharing across the institution. I think Bob talked about the really poor communications that exist within universities. And one of the things that we're seeing is that the client service managers are becoming a knowledge conduit, not just in the IT space, because they're hearing what's happening for the various groups, and they're able to say, oh, do you know that the Faculty of Arts is doing that? And we should connect you. And so we start to connect people from across the institution. So that's been a sort of a side benefit we weren't expecting. We're able to hear what the client needs are, bring that back to UBCIT, and actually feed that into the service design process for either new services or existing services. So that's been really helpful as well. So that's really the end of our presentation, although we did just want to have one little comment about research IT support, because research IT support, everything we've just talked about, demands all of that and probably a whole whack more. Because you really need to have those skill sets to be able to design solutions and build solutions for the researchers. And this is an area that UBC is really looking at. We've had a pilot actually running over the last year where we've been reaching out and doing that client service function, that business analysis function, that solutions piece to researchers. And hopefully in a few weeks, we'll know if we get funding to continue it, but that's a real added value and something that will definitely tax us in all of those areas. So, ta-da.
Excellent. Great. You mentioned a number in terms of your ticket resolution performance. I didn't quite catch that.
So in one of the areas, I would say that the majority of our tickets are closed same day. So I would say, 60 to 70%. In the particular faculty we were looking at, it was 65. Yeah.
The 40,000 in a year, how many analysts?
Tier 1, we have, I think, about 10 or 15 tier 1. So we've divided it tier 1. All calls come in and they take everything. And they're given the ability to actually log into systems and issue accounts and do those things. If they can't handle it, then it goes up to tier 2, tier 3. So we're hoping to get to an 80-20 with them. So, and we also run 24/7. So we have an event monitoring team that's just monitoring the system. So they also have the ability, we did a reorg to give them the same skills as the help desk analysts. So during the downtime, they actually do tickets as well, which really helps that number.
Question from the online Q&A. What does your collaborative service catalog look like?
Well, it's a flat page. If you go to it.ubc.ca, you'll see it under the service catalog. So it's basically, a flat web page that you click on links and it takes you in and you can see a description of each service. So the idea is for the other groups, we would try to harmonize the look, the feel, and the descriptions of those services. Over the last year, it's starting to disintegrate a bit. So we're hoping to bring it back with the phase 2 with a more using ServiceNow, we're hoping to get to a more structured, database-driven view than what has been basically just flat files.
How are BAs funded?
So we have about 25 BAs. They are mainly involved with our administrative systems group. We have, we're changing our SIS. We do custom development, so you need a lot of BAs really when you're doing that. They're all funded, most of them from projects and also from client funds. So when a client comes in and says, I need a BA, we actually have them pay for that. So Gillian, you might want to talk to.
Yeah, so at the University of Guelph, we have a couple of different approaches. We have our senior BA position. It's actually a shared hire. So between the Office of Research and CCS, we're paying for that position. There are a couple of individuals we call business solutions specialists who are doing BA work, and they're in our web solutions areas. They do BA work for web development projects. So similar to what Jen was talking about, there is a cost recovery component to our web development projects. So that's covering off that. And then there are special projects as well. So currently on campus, Graduate Studies, the Office of Graduate Studies is implementing a document management system based on a system we have on campus, and they've specifically hired a BA to help them manage through that project. So we've done that with other groups. So Office of Research, prior to hiring this position, we helped to kick off a plan around a research administrative information management system, and we brought a BA in who was working for us, but who we also billed out to them to help work on getting that rolling.
Any other questions from the room?
I thought I saw a hand in the back, but maybe not.
Another question online. At what level within a college would senior relationship manager work?
So all levels. So if you take, say, our Faculty of Science, which is not integrated, and that's not going to happen anytime soon, they each have their own IT staff, and they're not centralized even within the faculty. So our client service manager works with each individual department and also with research institutes. So within a department, if there's an area. So usually what I will do is assign a client service manager to one area, and then depending on the workload, that's all they can do, or they'll take on different portfolios. So it'll go all the way down to whatever makes sense organizationally.
Back to the room.
This question.
IT is fundamentally the technical department. VA is fundamentally about business. I'm curious why, what advantages you think there are to having VAs in the IT department as opposed to in the business units to the business outcomes?
So I'll take this and I'll hand it over to Gayleen. I think what we're finding is that in order to be good partners to the academic enterprise, we can't just be about the technology anymore, that we're starting to move up the stack into more of a strategic partnering function. So some of my clients do have their own BAs. In fact, the business school has 2 BAs and a project manager and a portfolio manager. But as we're developing enterprise systems, we have to be able to look at the workflows associated with those systems and be able to map the requirements for it. So where we're bringing in the BAs is generally around that requirements gathering piece for the enterprise systems, and then where it may be faculty-based solutions, they may find that need. But I'll let Gayleen speak to it on the Guelph side.
Yeah, I really echo what Jen said, and I think earlier on I flashed up our vision, and we really do see ourselves still as technology providers. We believe we have an important role to continue to play on our campuses in that capacity, but the knowledge solution piece, that's how we've termed it, is critically important. So if we're not having these open dialogues or discussions with our partners on campus, decisions are being made, and sooner or later, somehow, some way, they're coming back to us anyway, because a lot of technology is ingrained in the business of the university, whether it's the academic side or the administrative side. So it's helpful, and I think Jen made a really great point, because we actually touch out in so many different areas. We're there to help people understand what's going on elsewhere on campus when they might not otherwise know. So if this area over here is deciding that they need, I'm going to use that terminology here, but a workforce effectiveness software to augment what the HR system's doing, and this system's doing, or this area over here is doing it, let's get those people talking together so that there's an opportunity to bring one additional system on campus, not a multitude of those. So we really feel that we have an opportunity to do more than just talk on the technology level, and we've been working really hard on our campus to get ourselves at the table. It's not perfect yet, but I think that people are starting to look to us beyond just technology. They see that we are implementing our own processes and trying to be better in terms of how we're delivering our own business area, and that's helping to build some trust and understanding in what we can provide.
Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, Gilly.
Okay.